Hey guys, it's Sekaar, and today we're going to be going over my Magic Templar build for the Lost Steps chapter. Before we get started, I just wanted to clarify that this is not a beginner's build at all. A lot of the stuff on this build is difficult to acquire, and it's a very different kind of playstyle than a lot of people are used to. It's kind of difficult to manage your resources and your sustain, really. So little difficult. So if you're on the newer side, I don't recommend this build. I'm trying to come up with a more user-friendly Magic Templar build, but it's very tough this patch because Magic Templar just isn't that good in normal circumstances. It got really nerfed and it got really gutted this past patch. So I'm sorry about that. I'm still trying, but if this does look like a build that interests you, it is definitely worthwhile. I've been having a blast on it. I've been able to win actually every single 1v1 that I've come across in Cyrodiil, I have won on this build so far. So I hope you guys enjoy. Let's get on with what the video is and what the build is, and that's about it. And also, one last thing, if you're not subscribed to the channel, I would highly appreciate it. Alright guys, let's move on. Alright guys, let's get started. First things first, we're going to be looking at our character sheet, wherever that is. We're going to be a Breton on this Magic Templar. Breton is going to be the best in slot for sustain because Breton you get a reduced cost on all your magic abilities because you're also going to want to be a Vampire Stage 3 on this build, so it's going to increase the cost of your abilities. So Breton is going to counteract that so that you're not having sustain issues and so that you are not just running out because all your abilities are super expensive. So Breton is definitely the way to go on virtually every single magic class. I really like it. I use it on all of mine. So Breton is definitely best in slot for Magic Templar for sure. As far as our attributes go, we're going to be putting 49 points into magic and 15 points into health to give us a nice 30.7k max health pool and 25.8k magic pool. I think that's pretty good, both of them. And then also your stamina is pretty high too at 16.5k. It's definitely worth it to get all that going too. And then our Mundus Stone, we're going to be using the Atronach to increase our magic recovery by 310. Our food that we're going to be using is our Zorga's Smoked Bear Haunch. This is going to increase your max health by 4,300, and it's going to increase your stamina and magic recovery by 369 for 2 hours. As I say in all my videos, Orzorgas is very expensive, so if you can't afford it, look up the food Jewels of Misrule. It's basically the exact same thing. You just lose a tiny bit of health. I think it's like 300 or 400 health, so it's really not that big of a deal. I just like to get all my stats as high as possible, so I use Orzorgas. I definitely recommend that. And yeah. So as I said before, we're going to be using Vampire Stage 3. This is going to increase our tankiness as much as possible because of the Undeath passive that you get from Vampire. It's going to make you take less damage the lower health you are, up to 30%. So that is a absolutely huge buff, and you become very tanky the lower health you get. So it is very good to stay alive in PvP with that. As far as our gear goes, our monster set is going to be Valken Scoria. Our helmet is going to be medium in impen, with our shoulders being heavy and reinforced. You could flip those if you want. I just already had a golded out medium Scoria helmet, so I figured why not use that, and then just I got the heavy shoulder, so I just ran with it. So what Scoria does is the one piece is going to give you 1,400 offensive penetration, and the two piece is when you deal damage with the damage over time ability, you have an 8% chance to summon a meteor that deals 4,500 flame damage to the target, and also 1,500 damage to all other enemies within 5 meters. This is really huge. I really like this. It's going to really make sense later on. We're kind of building up a lot of dots and extra damage on this build, and we don't really need a monster set like Balorg or Bloodspawn or Magma Incarnate on this just to give us extra stats. So Valken Scoria is really good for this build. I was also recommended a lot from my Twitch chat to use Marisalok, and it looks very good, and Marisalok might look better. I just don't have it on this on here. So I just ran with Scoria instead because I do have that. So if you run the Marisalok monster set instead, that is completely reasonable, and you might get better results or the same results. I don't know, but it would still be good. So as I said before, medium Scoria impen, and before we even look any further, all of our body pieces are going to have that prismatic enchantment on it, as you can tell. So medium helmet, impen, heavy shoulders and reinforced. Our chest piece is going to be the Curious of Serpent's Disdain in Reinforced in Heavy. And what Serpent's Disdain does is it gives you a line of max stamina, a line of max health, a line of max magic, and the 5-piece increases the duration of status effects you apply by 16 seconds. So with the Mara's Bomb nerf coming tomorrow, or it's actually going to be today by the time this video is released, this build is really going to shine even harder. I really like this. This is going to be able to dot your enemies down in a meta where dots really don't do that much damage, but on this build, it does. So I definitely recommend using Serpent's Sustain on this. Our hands are going to be Light Serpent's Sustain and Impen. Our waist is going to be Light Serpent's Sustain and Impen. Our feet are going to be Light Serpent's Sustain and Impen. And our legs are going to be Heavy Serpent's Disdain in Reinforced to increase our resistances as much as possible. Our jewelry is going to be, our mythic is going to be Sea Serpent's Coil in the Swift trait with a spell damage glyph on it. Sea Serpent's is while you're at full health, you gain 40% damage reduction, and after taking damage while at full health in combat, you gain Serpent's Rebuke for 10 seconds. So you do get a 40% snare, but we're kind of working around that with triple Swift on our jewelry, and then also the Celerity CP. But as a trade-off, you get Major Berserk and Major Courage. So it increases your damage done by 10% and your weapon and spell damage by 430. That is absolutely massive, and you get absolutely so much damage from that. So you don't even feel the snare on it when you're using your Race Against Time, Celerity, Triple Swift. You don't really feel the snare at all, but you just get free damage. So that is absolutely huge. Our rings are going to both be trainee rings with Swift traits on it, and they're both going to have spell damage enchantments as well. The reason why we're using trainee is we have 2 extra slots on this build, so, you know, extra max health, extra max magic, that's always lovely. I love that so much. I really think that is the way to go with this. It's going to increase and pad your stats as much as possible. Onto our weapons, which is the biggest part of this build. We're going to be using Master's Perfected Maces, both dual wield. This is going to, the main hand is going to be Nirnhone, the offhand is going to be Charged. The reason why we're using Nirnhone and Charge is Nirnhone is going to increase your weapon damage and spell damage. Your Charge is going to increase the chance to apply status effects by 182%, and that is going to go really well with Serpent's Sustain as well. So you do that, and you're going to be hitting really hard. The reason why we're using that is because our 2-piece is going to give you, the Perfected is going to give you a line of crit chance, which is always huge. And then using Twin Slashes, it's going to deal 1,635 more damage to each hit of the initial attack of the bleed. So that's huge. It's a lot of extra damage that you get from that, and it really helps on this build. You're doing so much damage, and your dots are going to be shredding on this build. And then on top of that, I'll get to the next part later in a second about like why we're still using Masters. Backbar is going to be Vadashron Perfected Ice Staff. We're using the Ice Staff because ice is good for your defense. It's going to increase your resistances as much as possible, and also increases your resistances is going to be defending. So you're really increasing that a lot. And what this in particular set does is the Perfected line gives you a line of offensive penetration. So that's not really needed because we're going to be on our backbar, so that's not really calculated into the effects when you're going offensive. But the real 2-piece is casting weakness to elements on a target within 15 meters. It gives you basically a tether between you and the enemy, and it does damage every second. So it is absolutely huge, the damage that you get from that, and it gives you a nice, a nice status effect on your enemy too. So that is huge. I definitely recommend using this. It is going to give you just free damage on all your enemies. Onto our skills. Our front bar is going to be Rending Slashes. I know, we're on a Magplar, and this is going to be our spammable as a stam ability. It's weird, I know. But the reason why we're using this is because of that Master's dual wield, and you get the bleed damage from this, and you get the hemorrhaging status effect. So it's going to apply another status effect to them on top of your Serpent Sustain. That's huge. I love that so much. So it's going to be doing, it really hits for a lot. So I definitely recommend using that. Degeneration, this is going to be your source of Major Brutality and Major Sorcery. So it's going to increase your weapon and spell damage by 20%. And on top of that, you also put a dot on them as well. So, you know, that's just extra damage as well. Aurora Javelin, this is going to be your CC on this build. It does a little bit of damage, not much, but being able to CC your enemy at the right time is perfect in a fight and can really sway it to either securing that kill or just not. Living Dark, this is going to be a nice heal for you. That way you're not only running 2 heals, and now you have 3 heals with Living Dark, so I definitely recommend using this. Purifying Light, this thing hits like an absolute truck. I've hit upwards of 20k Purifying Lights just because of how much copy damage you can get. So you apply this on somebody, and then say you put down 20,000 points of damage to them. When this effect expires, you're going to be doing 10,000 damage to them. So that's huge. So you're just going to be parsing on them once you apply this, and you just hit them so hard with this. I love it so much. Dawnbreaker of Smiting. This is going to be your ultimate that you're spamming on this build. This is what you use all the time. It's going to be a great source of damage. It's also your another CC that you could use if you don't want to use Javelin when you're really timing up that burst properly. So Dawnbreaker is what you want to do to get your damage up as high as possible. Your back bar is going to look like this. Channeled Focus is going to be your source of major resolve, so it's going to increase your physical and spell resistance by 6k. And you also get some nice sustain by getting magic back every 1 second. And on top of that, you're also getting health when you're standing in the rune as well, so that is huge. Race Against Time, this is going to be your source of major expedition and minor force, so it's going to increase your movement speed, and it's also going to increase your crit damage too. But more importantly is you're going to be getting all those snare removals too. So if you're stuck in place, hit Race Against Time, you're gone. It's fun. And with Sea Serpents, this is going to also get rid of the snare too. So you're going to be a lot faster too. Resolving Vigor, this is going to be one of your main heals on this build. It's going to give you minor resolve after casting too, so it's going to increase your physical and spell resistance by 3k. So between your Resolving Vigor and your Channeled Focus, you're going to be increasing your resistances by about 9k on this build. That's pretty massive in my opinion. Honor the Dead, this is going to be your burst heal, so when you're at lower health, you're definitely going to want to use this to get your health back up as high as possible. This is a great way to get your health back to full. Elemental Susceptibility, this is what we're using with our Vatishron. This is going to tether you to your enemies, but also on top of that, you're going to be afflicting them with Major Breach for 1 minute, reducing their physical and spell resistance by 6k. And on top of that, every 6 seconds while this ability persists, the enemy is afflicted with the Burning, Chilled, or Concussion status effect. So you're just basically applying so many status effects to your enemy. It is absolutely so good. I'll explain in a little bit also why we're using all these status effects too. It's going to make sense, I promise. And then also Undo. I haven't morphed this yet, and I still feel tanky, so I'm just going to morph this to Temporal Guard when I get to that point. And I'm going to be even more tanky on this build. I'm going to like it even more. So use that and morph this into Temporal Guard once you get there. That way you get that minor protection on your back bar at all times. Then last but not least, our champion points. Our blue slotables are going to be Mastered Arms, Ironclad, Force of Nature, which is the reason why we're just basically compiling all these status effects onto somebody. It increases your offensive pen by 660 for every status effect your target has. So say you're applying your Rending Slashes, that's 1 status effect. Say you're applying your Force of Nature, that's 3 different status effects once every, what was it, like 6 seconds or so. You're just applying status effect after status effect. Your penetration is getting so high on this build, so I definitely recommend using Force of Nature. And Focus Mending to increase your healing on this build as well. Our red tree is going to be Celerity, get that movement speed up, Survival Instincts, Pain's Refuge, and Sustained by Suffering. Our green slotables, the only ones that really matter for PvP, are Rationer and Liquid Efficiency. Gifted Rider is also pretty cool, I guess. And then also what's really important is Breakfall. Getting that 35% reduced fall damage passive on is actually massive. And that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I really enjoyed this build a lot. It's a lot of fun. Being able to just 1v1 somebody in Cyrodiil with this is absolutely the most fun thing I've done in so long. It hits like an absolute truck, and I love it. So guys, I really hope you enjoyed. If you want to see this build live in action, you can catch me live at twitch.tv/Sekaar, where I stream 5 days a week. I will have that link in the description. So if you're not, come follow, say what's up. But that's about it here. If you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please, 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 please do so. I would highly appreciate it. It really helps me out so much. It's free. I'm trying to get to 3,000 subs by the end of the year. We just passed 2,600, so that's huge, and I appreciate you guys so much. You guys have been amazing. I really hope that we can get there, and I would just be owing it all to you guys. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, night, whatever time it is, and I will see you guys on the next video. Later.